On Wednesday morning, the bombshell news broke that Red Bull CEO Christian Horner had been sacked. The man who ran the team for 20 years was released from his duties with immediate effect. Social media exploded as many people expressed their disbelief. A lot of fingers were pointed as well by Red Bull fans. Some blamed Jos Verstappen, some blamed the whole Verstappen clan, and some said good riddance. After reading all the opinions and news articles about the subject, I discovered who the real villains are in this story. And it's not who you might expect. I'm Wimbo. Here's 3 seconds to leave a like. Horner was hired by Helmut Marko, who was hired by Dieter Mateschitz to start an F1 team. They bought Jaguar, hired Adrian Newey, and went from an energy drinks company to a dominant, respected F1 team in 2 very dominant spells. One with Sebastian Vettel and one with Max Verstappen. They won 8 drivers' titles and 6 constructors' titles. Then Dieter Mateschitz died and the problem started. The Thai majority wanted a more commercial outlook on their 2 teams and pushed Christian Horner forward as the man to do that for them. Horner is very ambitious, so he wanted this as well. Helmut Marko, who was positioned between Red Bull GmbH and Red Bull Racing, was in Horner's way a bit, and he didn't like the Austrian's outspoken ways. Basically, he wanted him out of the picture. When Verstappen found out about this, he backed Marko up, and Marko received a new contract. By this time, Horner was team principal, head of Red Bull marketing, head of the Red Bull Powertrains division, and head of Red Bull Technologies. That's a lot of responsibilities and a lot of power. He also looked after the drivers, and it was his idea to replace Nick de Vries with Daniel Ricciardo. And in doing so, he scored the Visa Cash App sponsor deal, which then led to that awful name change. Then, at the start of 2024, the Hornergate scandal happened. It was painfully obvious that a certain group had a goal to get rid of Horner, with all that information that was strategically leaked. In case you don't know, a former personal assistant had accused Horner of inappropriate behavior. On 2 occasions, this case was handled by barristers, and twice it was dismissed. There is still a tribunal to come in 2026. We don't know if that's related to his sacking now. In the turmoil of this scandal, people started leaving Red Bull. Newey, Wheatley and Courtenay are the biggest names in that regard. The results started to slump as well. Max Verstappen did win the title in 2024, so they started the 2025 season fresh and full of hope. Then the results started getting worse. Sergio Perez got a new contract the year before, but then was fired anyway, which cost Red Bull a lot of money. And then Lawson was promoted and then demoted after 2 races. And now Yuki Tsunoda is struggling in that horrible RB21. All this time, Christian Horner had the backing of the Jovigia family. But something was simmering in the background. Rumors started swirling around that Verstappen was in talks with Mercedes, and they didn't deny any of it. Toto Wolff and George Russell both acknowledged it, and Max Verstappen didn't put it to bed either. It's believed that this possibility of Verstappen, who's keeping Red Bull afloat with his performance, leaving, triggered a change in the owners of Red Bull, and Christian Horner was fired and replaced by Laurent Mekies from the sister team. We don't know yet who will take the other jobs Horner leaves behind. That, in a nutshell, is how things are at the moment. Now it's time to look at who's to blame for this mess. I've been glued to my phone for the last few days to read all the news and reactions from people about Horner's brutal sacking. Opinions vary on who's the bad guy in this story, and I'd like to go through them one by one. Is it the Austrian side? Well, it's clear that Austria was never happy with the direction the team went after their founder died. The time when the achievements were the goal and the finances would follow was gone, and some very questionable decisions were made regarding to pay drivers and sponsors. It's clear that they didn't want Horner to continue, and they made it known too. No hiding from them at all. When Horner wanted Helmut Marko out of Red Bull, the man who hired him, it angered Austria and another group in this soap opera. I'm of course talking about the Verstappen camp. Max, Jos and their manager Raymond Vermeulen. What Max wants is pretty simple. A calm environment to work in and a fast car. At the moment he has neither. It's been like that since the end of 2023. That's when Max and Checo started pointing out flaws in the design of their car and were ignored. See, Christian Horner had an incredible amount of faith in Pierre Waché and hyped him up big time. This bothered Adrian Newey, who felt they took credit for his work. Then add that Horner said that Newey only worked 3 days a week and walked in whenever he felt like it, and we had the start of a rift between the genius designer and Horner. So nothing was done about the problems of the car design, and this became even clearer when McLaren started beating them after 6 races in 2024. By then, the PA scandal had also come out, and Jos Verstappen warned that if Horner stayed on, the team would fall apart. Well, that happened, and Verstappen is stuck with a Waché car now that just doesn't work, most of the time. That's what Jos Verstappen did. He said the things his son couldn't say, as Jos isn't employed by Red Bull. A lot of people hate Jos Verstappen for his past and his outspoken ways. It's almost like a cult of people who with every tiny thing that happens to Max or Red Bull start pointing at him. I'm getting tired of defending him, and I've lost friends over it. What it comes down to is simple. You won't hear the Verstappen camp if things are going the way they should. So you can't blame them for Horner getting fired when they speak up. It's already too late. The damage has already been done. So that brings me to the next person to blame for Horner's demise. It's Christian Horner himself. He loved getting those promotions, and he fancied himself as the main man for the team. He must have looked at billionaire Toto Wolff and felt like a beggar with his mere 400 million net worth. He gladly took on those roles upon himself and basked in the power it gave him. Call it the small man syndrome, where shorter men like to overcompensate for their height by exhibiting aggressive, dominant or controlling behaviors. Another big mistake he made was that he was stubborn as f*** too. When the scandal was at its height, nobody would have blamed him for taking a step down for a bit, to a job more out of the picture, like his other 3 big responsibilities in the other departments. Jonathan Wheatley would have made a great team principal, and he would have stayed. He didn't want to part with any of his power, and he thought he was invincible. Well, he wasn't, as it turned out. Love him or hate him, some things you can't get away with, especially in a team going downhill. I liked a lot about him too, and he was always supportive of Max. He achieved a lot, but his eyes got just too big, and now it's too late. We'll see him in another team at some point, I'm sure of it. But that brings me to the #1 villain of the Horner getting sacked story. It's the Thai owner Jovidia. He was the one who wanted to move from what Dieter Mateschitz had envisioned. He was the one who filled Horner's head with poison, promising him the world. He was the one who backed him during the scandal by getting his own barristers to conduct the investigations. And now that it looks like there's nobody left of the super team and Max Verstappen is threatening to leave, now he drops his man like a stone. That's scumbag behavior. It's as low as a hit and run, in my book, if you know what I mean. I hope that in the future, Ford will gather a fortune to buy the F1 team and step away from Red Bull and Jovidia as an owner, so it won't be ruined again by a billionaire who wants a few billion more. This story has only losers so far, and that makes Jovidia the villain. Subscribe. Take care now. Doei doei.